The cell was too small for someone like her. Princess Karel, heir to the Threxian Empire, crouched in the corner of the human-built prison with her wings pressed tight to her armored back. Every surface smelled of iron and oil, metallic and sterile, nothing like the warm, resin-scented chambers of her palace. Even the air felt wrong, recycled and filtered by strange machines. The humans had stripped her of her royal crest, her command sigils, and the ceremonial blade that had never left her side since she came of age. Without them, she felt naked, a predator disarmed, her claws useless against the shimmering blue energy that formed the walls of her cage. She had tried once, slashing at the barrier with all the fury of her lineage, only to be thrown back by an electric jolt that left her body trembling. Now she sat waiting, seething, replaying her capture in her mind. The battlefield had been a storm of fire. Threxian war beasts, their scales shining like obsidian, had fought against human armored mechs. Above, her own flagship had traded blows with Terran warships, their cannons howling like thunder. She had flown into the fray at the head of her honor guard, certain of victory. Then something had gone wrong, human trickery, a trap. Explosives had ripped her escort apart, and before she could retreat, a precision strike had crippled her cruiser. The last thing she remembered was the glare of human spotlights cutting through smoke before unconsciousness claimed her. Now she was here. Prisoner. Spoil of war. Boots echoed down the corridor. Heavy, measured, purposeful. She looked up, expecting some grotesque brute. The figure who appeared, however, was lean, almost gaunt. A human male, tall but not hulking, with the calm posture of someone who had long ago stopped being surprised by violence. His uniform was battered and scorched, bearing the emblem of a Terran Union commander. Across his chest was stitched a name, Rylan Voss. Karel's lips peeled back, showing her curved fangs. "So, you are the one who will consume me." He didn't flinch at the accusation. His eyes, a piercing cold blue, studied her the way one might examine a dangerous animal, alert, calculating but not afraid. His voice, when he spoke, was steady, deep. "That cage could hold a black hole." "It will hold you." Her claws scraped against the floor as she leaned closer to the barrier. "Why keep me alive, human? Do your kind feed slowly on prisoners? Do you drain us limb by limb?" He gave no sign of disgust or anger, only the faintest shake of his head. Without a word, he set something on a sliding tray at the base of the cell. Sealed ration packs, fresh fruit slices, and a bottle of clear water. The mechanism hummed as it pushed the tray into her cage. She stared. This was wrong. Too wrong. Prisoners were meant to be broken, starved, made to beg for scraps. That was what the Threxians did to captives, and surely these humans were no different. Yet here was food. Real food, not slop. "Eat," Rylan said simply. "You'll need your strength." Her wings twitched in confusion. Her instincts screamed it was a trick, but the scent of the fruit reached her, sweet and tangy, and her stomach betrayed her by tightening with hunger. She forced herself to look away, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her eat. Instead, she bared her teeth. "Do you think this kindness will make me betray my people? You think I will grovel for your scraps?" Rylan's gaze was unreadable, as if her venom meant nothing. "I think you've been through enough for one day." He turned away, hands clasped behind his back, his stride unhurried as he walked toward the door. Her claws dug furrows into the steel floor. The insult of his indifference burned more than chains would have. He didn't taunt her. He didn't strike her. He didn't even seem to hate her, and that unsettled her more than any cruelty. The ship lurched suddenly, alarms blaring through the corridors. She could hear the muffled voices of human crew shouting, the groan of the hull under strain. Outside her cell's narrow viewport, streaks of light flared, plasma fire, deadly and bright. A battle was raging. The humans hadn't won yet. Karel pressed against the barrier, her eyes widening as the shadow of a Threxian warship drifted into view, weapons spitting fire at the human vessel. The irony made her laugh bitterly. She was trapped inside an enemy ship while her own people sought to obliterate it. If the humans lost, she would be incinerated with them. Her gaze flicked back to the door where Commander Rylan Voss had gone. His calm demeanor, his refusal to play the part of a monster, his choice to feed her instead of torment her, it all echoed in her mind like a riddle she could not solve. The humans were not what she expected, and that terrified her far more than their weapons. The battleship Resolute cut through the void like a wounded beast, its hull scorched from running battles across half a sector. Its engines screamed as they pushed far beyond safe limits, every thruster firing in desperate rhythm. Yet still, the hunters followed. 3 Threxian war cruisers closed in behind, their angular hulls bristling with weapons. Their plasma cannons fired in relentless bursts, washing the human ship's shields in burning green light. On the Resolute's bridge, red warning glyphs painted every console. Smoke hissed from a shattered panel. Crew members worked frantically, sweat glistening under the harsh glow of the displays. "Plasma fire incoming!" Lieutenant Miles barked, clutching his headset. "Impact in 3-2, the ship rolled hard. The blast missed the command deck by a hair, tearing a molten scar across the Resolute's flank. The ship trembled, groaning under the strain. Commander Rylan Voss braced against the railing, his voice cutting through the chaos like steel. "Compensate! Keep her nose forward. Engines, give me every drop you've got. We outrun them or we die here." The helm officer's hands danced over the controls. "Aye, sir. But the engines won't hold at this rate." "Then pray they hold long enough." Behind them, through the wide viewport, Carell could see her people's war cruisers gaining ground. Her talons clenched. Each vessel bore the sigil of her empire, carved in crimson across their prows. The Fang of Threx, a symbol of dominance and eternal conquest. Her heart surged with pride until she remembered they were hunting her too. Her people would not stop until the Resolute was vaporized. They would not risk a Threxian princess falling into human hands alive. The irony stung like acid. When the ship rocked again from another glancing blow, Carell snarled, pressing against the bars of her cage. "You cannot escape them. 3 cruisers against this crippled wreck? It is suicide." Ryland's gaze flicked her way, calm even under fire. "You're right. We can't outrun them." He leaned closer, voice cold and clipped. "That's why I need your help." Her wings flared in outrage. "You dare?" He ignored her anger, stepping right up to the energy barrier. "You know their fleet signals? Their codes. One mistake in their comms, one false order could buy us the seconds we need." "You give me that and I get us clear." Carell's chest rumbled with a bitter laugh. "Betray my own kind? To save you?" Her voice dripped with scorn. "Humans are scavengers, cannibals. You expect me to believe you would spare me if I help you?" Ryland's eyes didn't waver. "I don't care if you believe me. But hear this. If they catch us, they won't bring you home to a hero's welcome. They'll execute you as dishonored. You were captured. To them, you're already dead." The words carved deep into her. She wanted to deny it, but she knew the truth. The Threxian code was merciless. Any warrior who fell into enemy hands was no longer a warrior, no longer worthy of the Fang. Her father would see her as nothing but shame. The bridge trembled as another barrage slammed into the shields. The readouts flared crimson. "Shields at 30%, shouted Miles. "We won't take another volley." Carell's claws scraped the floor as she paced the cell. Her pride screamed at her to let the humans burn, to die with defiance rather than betray her empire. But another voice whispered, cold, logical, undeniable, "If you stay silent, you die here. If you die here, they will remember you only as a failure." Her gaze met Ryland's again. His jaw was set, his posture rigid. No fear, only resolve. Humans, she thought, were too stubborn to know when to quit. "Fine," she growled at last, her voice like gravel. "One chance, human. Do not waste it. Bridge AI," Ryland barked. "Patch her into their comms." Carell stepped forward, closing her eyes as the signal array buzzed through her mind. She spoke in her native tongue, sharp and commanding. "Cruisers, break pursuit. Redirect fire to Sector 6. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then across the viewport, the warships faltered. Confusion rippled through their formation. Their weapons hesitated. "Now!" Ryland thundered. "Helm, punch us through that gap!" Engines flared white-hot, the Resolute lurching forward like a wounded predator making its final strike. The humans surged into the opening, sliding between the cruiser's arcs before the Threxians could react. Carell staggered against the wall as the acceleration slammed her back. The stars blurred. For a brief, impossible moment, they were free, but as the crew erupted in strained relief, the AI's cold monotone cut through the air. "Warning! Enemy dreadnought entering system." Carell's blood ran cold. She knew the name of that ship before the sensors even confirmed it. The Oblivion Fang, her father's flagship. And if the humans thought the cruisers were bad, they had no idea what horror awaited them now. The bridge of the Resolute was a storm of voices and alarms. The 3 Threxian cruisers had pulled back in confusion, but the shadow of something far worse was already sliding across the system. The Dreadnought. Carell knew the Oblivion Fang before the scanners even finished rendering its monstrous silhouette. Twice the size of the Resolute, bristling with weapons that could crack moons, its black armor reflected no light, as though the void itself bent to serve it. To the Threxians, it was a symbol of eternal dominance. To everyone else, it was death-given form. Yet Commander Rylan Voss did not falter. His jaw tightened as his eyes studied the tactical display, already sketching impossible plans in his mind. "Miles," he said, voice sharp, "divert all auxiliary power to the engines. Helm, take us into the moon's shadow. Keep us cold." The crew obeyed instantly, though the ship was already limping. Sparks cascaded from a ruptured panel as the Resolute plunged behind the cratered husk of a dead moon. The ship groaned, shields flickering, but the crew moved with practiced precision. Carell leaned against the barrier of her cell, her throat tight. She wanted to sneer, to declare the humans doomed, but there was something in Ryland's calmness that strangled the words in her throat. The Dreadnought's presence pressed on her like a physical weight. She could almost feel the pulse of its reactor, hear the whisper of its fleet-wide commands. She had grown up in the shadow of that ship, had heard the endless stories of how it had broken enemy armadas, burned entire colonies to ash. The Oblivion Fang was her father's pride and her people's terror weapon. Facing it with a crippled Terran warship was nothing short of madness, and yet the humans were preparing to fight. Ryland stepped closer to her cage, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "That thing is your father's ship, isn't it?" Her wings twitched, betraying her. It is. Good," he said. "That means you know its weaknesses." She let out a sharp laugh, unable to contain it. "Weaknesses? Human, the Fang has no weaknesses. Its guns can slice your ship in half. Its shields can withstand a star collapsing. You won't even scratch its armor." Ryland didn't blink. "Everything breaks. The trick is finding where." He moved back to his command chair, barking orders. "Weapons, prep every missile we've got. Gunners, I want coordinated fire drills on standby. No wasted shots." The crew scrambled. Despite their exhaustion, they obeyed with grim determination. Carol's mind churned. She had never seen warriors behave this way. Threxians fought with pride, loud and boastful, their power displayed like fire. Humans, by contrast, fought with silence and steel, conserving every motion, every word. They weren't predators showing teeth. They were predators already sinking their claws in. The first volley from the Oblivion Fang shook the moon itself. A searing beam of green plasma sliced across the surface, tearing kilometers of rock into molten rivers. Even shielded by the moon's mass, the Resolute shuddered from the aftershock. "Status?" Ryland demanded. "Shields down to 20%, sir. Hull integrity compromised on decks 9 through 12. Seal the breaches. Lock it down. Helm, keep us buried in the moon's shadow. Don't let that beast get a clean lock." Carell pressed her talons against the energy field of her cell, her chest heaving. She should have reveled in watching humans quake before the power of her empire. Instead, she found her gaze locked on Rylan, on the unwavering calm etched into every line of his scarred face. No fear. No surrender, just focus. The ship's AI spoke in its flat monotone. "Enemy vessels sweeping the moon with scanner arrays. They'll find us in minutes," Miles muttered grimly. Ryland's eyes flicked toward Carell again, sharp as a blade. "Princess, you've studied that ship since birth. You know its patrol patterns, its systems. Give me something I can use, or we all die together." Her throat tightened. He was asking her to betray the very empire she had sworn to serve. Her father's voice echoed in her skull. A Threxian princess never bends, never breaks. Better death than dishonor, and yet, if she did nothing, she would die anyway, burned alive in the wreckage of this human ship, remembered by her people not as a warrior, but as a failure. The thought twisted inside her like a knife. The dreadnought loomed larger in the viewport, its weapons cycling for another blast. The moon's crust split as the fang's fire scythed across it again, closer this time. Karel's claws dug into her palms until blood welled. She hated it. She hated the humans, their calmness, their impossible defiance. But more than that, she hated being powerless. Finally, she whispered, her voice low but sharp. There is a flaw. One. But if I tell you, human, it will be the final betrayal of my people. Ryland's eyes didn't waver. Then betray them. Because if you don't, you'll die here as nothing. Her chest rose and fell, torn between fury and survival. The dreadnought's weapons roared again, shaking the moon around them, and in that moment, Karel realized the truth. To her empire, she was already dead, but to the humans, she might still matter. The silence in the cell was suffocating. Only the steady hum of the ship's engines and the faint hiss of recycled air filled the space as Princess Carol paced like a caged predator. The steady blue glow of the barrier cast shifting light across her scaled skin, illuminating the uncertainty in her golden eyes. On the bridge, she could hear the humans preparing for a battle they could not win. Voices barked commands, the thrum of charging weapons resonated through the deck plates, and the occasional shudder of distant impacts reminded her that time was running out. Why were they still fighting? Logic screamed that they should cut power, surrender, beg for mercy. That was the Threxian way, show dominance when strong, yield when survival demanded. But the humans had another way. They fought as though death itself was just another obstacle to outthink. Karel pressed her talons against the barrier, her breath uneven. The Oblivion Fang was drawing closer, its reactor output flooding her senses like a beacon. Her father's ship, her father's shadow. If the humans challenged it, the outcome was certain. The dreadnought would annihilate them in minutes, and she would die in a cage, a powerless spectator to her own erasure. The door slid open with a hiss. Commander Ryland Voss stepped inside. His uniform was dirtied with ash and plasma burns, his sleeves torn from the chaos on the bridge, yet his eyes remained sharp, always sharp. He stopped just outside her cell, hands clasped behind his back. "You know it's coming," he said quietly. "No preamble, no bluff." Her wings twitched. "I know it is hopeless. Your ship is a candle before a storm. The Fang will snuff you out without effort." "Then tell me how to hurt it." His tone was iron, steady, not begging, not pleading, commanding. She let out a humorless laugh, shaking her head. "You really believe a single human vessel can wound the pride of my empire?" Ryland's gaze never wavered. "I believe everything can bleed. The only question is where to cut." Karel froze, her claws curling. No one had ever spoken of the Fang in such terms. Among her people, the ship was sacred, untouchable. Yet this human, scarred and weary, treated it like any other beast. A foe to be studied, hunted, slain. "Why do you persist?" she demanded suddenly, her voice rising. "Why not surrender? My father would take you as captives. Perhaps some of you would even live." Ryland stepped closer to the barrier, his shadow falling across her. "Because surrender isn't survival. It's slavery. We don't kneel to monsters, princess. Not yours, not anyone's." The words hit harder than she expected. Her people did kneel to power, to bloodlines, to strength greater than their own. But these humans, broken and cornered, refused. It made no sense. It made her chest ache with something she couldn't name. Her father's voice echoed in her head. "A captured daughter is no daughter at all." "You are already dead to me." The realization crashed over her with cruel clarity. Even if the humans released her now, the Threxians would never welcome her back. To them, she was a ghost, a shame to be erased. Her talons trembled as she finally spoke. "There is a weakness, a flaw in the Fang's design. It lies near the aft reactor, a conduit shielded but not armored. Strike it, and you may cripple the ship, if you survive long enough to reach it. Ryland's eyes locked on hers, a flicker of something unreadable passing over his face. Relief? Gratitude? It was gone in a heartbeat. That's all I need. He turned to leave, his stride unhurried. But Carell lunged to the edge of her cell, her voice raw. Wait! He stopped. Her chest rose and fell. If you succeed, why not kill me after? Why not take revenge on the daughter of your enemy? Why keep me alive? For the first time, his expression softened, the steel in his voice tempered by something almost gentle. Because humans don't eat their enemies. We save them. The words pierced deeper than any blade. She had expected hatred, expected cruelty. Instead, she was given something her empire never offered. Mercy. Ryland left without another word, the door hissing shut behind him. Carell stood trembling in the glow of her cage, her mind a storm. On the bridge, she heard the ship roar to life, engines burning hot, weapons priming. The humans were moving to strike at the heart of her empire. And she, Princess Carell, had given them the dagger. For the first time in her life, she no longer knew which side she belonged to. The Resolute emerged from the shadow of the moon like a cornered wolf, scarred but unbroken. Its hull glowed with molten cracks, whole sections sealed by emergency bulkheads. Yet its engines burned white as it surged toward the impossible target, the Oblivion Fang. The dreadnought filled the starscape ahead, a leviathan bristling with weapons. Its cannons tracked lazily, as if amused by the audacity of a single battered Terran ship daring to challenge it. On the bridge, the crew moved with grim efficiency. Sweat-streaked, soot-stained faces, hands flying over consoles despite wounds and exhaustion. Every man and woman aboard knew what was at stake. Commander Ryland Voss stood at the center, voice steady even as firestorms raged outside. Helm, keep us angled at that conduit. Weapons, load every missile, every slug we've got. We only get one chance at this. Carell stood free now, her shackles removed. She hadn't been ordered, she had offered. Her voice carried across the tactical channels as she barked Threxian commands in perfect cadence, sending false signals across the Fang's comm grid. Sector 12, reposition defense drones to forward arc. Enemy reinforcements inbound from the rim. Her words sowed chaos, pulling defenses away from the aft conduit. Each syllable tore at her throat, betrayal cutting as deep as any blade, but she pushed the pain down. She had chosen this path. The dreadnought's first salvo came without warning. A lance of emerald plasma ripped through the void, striking the Resolute's flank. The ship screamed as whole decks buckled. Fires erupted along corridors. Deck 5 is gone, Miles shouted, gripping his station with white knuckles. Seal it and keep moving, Ryland thundered back. His eyes never left the viewport. The Resolute dove, twisting through the storm of cannon fire. Its smaller frame allowed maneuvers the Fang couldn't anticipate, darting between energy blasts that carved craters in the moon's surface behind them. Missile tubes 1 through 6, fire! A volley of Terran ordnance streaked across the void, white trails flaring against the black. Explosions blossomed along the Fang's hull, forcing its shields to flicker. The giant shuddered, but its retaliation was merciless. Another beam carved across the Resolute's bow, shredding armor, plating, and sending bodies tumbling in the lower decks. Carell gritted her teeth, clutching the railing. Human crew staggered, bloodied, but none abandoned their stations. They fought with a desperation she had never witnessed among her own kind. No hesitation, no thought of retreat. Conduit in range, shouted the gunner. Target locked! Ryland slammed his fist on the console. All batteries, fire! The ship unleashed hell. Plasma cannons roared. Railguns spat slugs at near-light speed. Missiles streaked like spears of fire. Every weapon the Resolute carried focused on one thin line of armor shielding the aft conduit. The Fang shuddered, shields rippling. Warning klaxons echoed from its hull as the shield generator faltered. Direct hit, Miles cried. We're through the outer layer! Again! Ryland barked, his voice raw. Don't let up. The crew obeyed, feeding everything they had into the breach. The Resolute convulsed as another wave of return fire ripped through its decks, but still its guns sang. At last, the conduit buckled. A blast pierced deep into the dreadnought's heart, and the effect was immediate. Energy arced wildly across its hull. systems overloaded in a chain reaction too massive to contain. Carell's knees gave way as she felt it, the death cry of the ship she had once worshipped. The Oblivion Fang split along its spine, molten fragments flaring outward like a starburst. The dreadnought, the pride of her people, her father's throne, was gone. The bridge of the Resolute erupted in ragged cheers, voices hoarse and half-choked with disbelief. Crew members embraced, some collapsing in exhaustion, others staring in awe at the wreckage drifting across the void. Carell sank against the railing, her chest heaving. She had betrayed everything she was raised to believe, and in doing so had destroyed the unshakable symbol of her empire. Her father's legacy lay in burning fragments. Rylan approached, his steps unsteady, his face pale with exhaustion, but his eyes still locked on her. He caught her as she swayed, his arms steady around her shoulders. "It's over," he said softly. Her voice cracked. No, it has only begun, because she knew the truth. The destruction of the Fang was not the end of the war. It was the opening shot of something far greater. The humans had done the impossible, and now the galaxy would never be the same. The wreckage of the Oblivion Fang drifted like a broken continent across the stars. Its shattered hull glowed, bleeding molten fragments into the void. Whole chunks of the dreadnought spun silently, vanishing into the dark, but the Resolute was not much better. Fires still licked its decks. Entire wings of the ship were missing, carved away by plasma strikes. Medics ran through corridors filled with smoke, dragging wounded crew from collapsed bulkheads. The engines sputtered, holding the vessel together on stubborn will alone. On the bridge, silence hung heavy. The crew stared at the ruins of the enemy flagship, their minds struggling to grasp what they had done. Rylan Voss stood at the viewport, shoulders slumped. He had led them through hell, but he knew victory was a fragile word. He could see dozens of Threxian ships pulling away from the battle site, scattering in panic. Yet his instincts told him retreat was not surrender. The Empire would regroup. Carell sat nearby, her hands still trembling. For the first time in her life, she wasn't giving orders, wasn't calculating the next kill. She was simply breathing. But every exhale tasted like ash. She had destroyed her father's legacy, her people's pride. Somewhere, on the homeworld, the news of the Fang's destruction would tear through the Empire like fire in dry fields. "Status?" Rylan asked finally, voice hoarse. "Half the ship's systems are fried," Miles replied. "Hull integrity's barely holding. We won't survive another fight." "Then let's make sure there isn't one," Rylan said. His gaze flicked to Carell. "You know your people. What happens now?" She forced herself to meet his eyes. "They will come. Not today, not tomorrow. But vengeance will consume them. My father will unleash everything unless—" She hesitated, tasting the weight of betrayal on her tongue. "Unless someone tells them the truth," Rylan frowned. "Truth?" "That the Fang didn't fall to an enemy fleet. That it didn't fall at all." She leaned forward, her eyes burning with new resolve. "It was destroyed by its own hubris. A system's failure. An accident. Anything but this. If they believe humans brought it down, war will rage until your species is dust. But if they see weakness within their own ranks, the fractures will spread. Doubt will eat them alive." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. "A lie. To cover the greatest victory humanity had ever achieved." "You'd protect us," Rylan said slowly. Carell's jaw tightened. "I would protect them from themselves. You do not understand what my father is capable of. He would burn worlds until the void itself screamed." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Better they think the dreadnought fell to chance than admit humanity did the impossible." Rylan studied her, weighing trust against instinct. This woman was bred for conquest, raised in cruelty, yet she had stood beside them in fire. She had chosen humanity when she could have let them die. Finally, he nodded. "Then you'll be our messenger." Her eyes widened. "You would let me go?" "You've earned that choice," he said. "But know this. If you betray us, if even one whisper of the truth slips free—" "You won't have to kill me," she cut in, her voice like iron. "My father will." The tension cracked like ice. Slowly she stood, straightening her ruined armor, chin lifted high. She no longer looked like a prisoner. She looked like someone carrying the weight of 2 civilizations on her shoulders. Moments later, Carell departed on a captured shuttle, her course set for the Threxian border. She did not look back at the Resolute, though her heart burned with something she couldn't name. On the bridge, Rylan watched her ship vanish into the stars. Miles exhaled. "Sir, can we trust her?" Rylan's gaze lingered on the empty void. "Trust doesn't matter, hope does. And right now, she's the only hope we've got." The crew fell into silence again, the kind that comes only after impossible survival. Some wept openly. Others simply stared at the wreckage. They had faced the unstoppable and lived. Far below, on scattered worlds, humanity would soon hear the story. A single battered Terran ship standing against the might of an empire, and winning. The tale would spread, whispered in bars, shouted in barracks, etched into history. The galaxy had thought humans were prey, fragile, insignificant. Yet tonight, under the burning remains of the Oblivion Fang, they had proven otherwise. The dawn of humanity's place among the stars had come, and it had come in fire.